Hello there, Senators, and welcome back to Star Wars Democracy. We got a lot of fun news to go over today. These are just rumors, but today we found out that Lucasfilm is looking at casting a 50 to 60-year-old male. We assume that it's going to be a villain, and we assume, unfortunately, that this is going to be the recasting for Baylan Skull. Rest in peace, Ray Stevenson. But that's not all. We also found out that Lucasfilm is looking to cast a female, and we believe that female to be Abeloth. So before we get into all of that, if you're new here, if you're watching this and you're not subscribed, please hit that subscribe button. We're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers, and we can't do it without your help. So would appreciate you hitting that subscribe button if you're new. And we're just going to dive into this. Now, we have a special guest with us here tonight. We have none other than Journeyman himself. So, Journeyman, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
Doing good. And then we have the man himself, Travis, who is a senator of the channel, has been with Journeyman and I on these live streams pretty much since we started, and is a super huge asset to the channel. Travis, how are you, sir?
I'm awesome. How about you guys?
We are doing fantastic. We're ready to talk some Star Wars. I wanted to bring you on, Travis, because you are a wealth of lore knowledge, and I think anybody who's watched us before, Journeyman and I, we know some things about Star Wars, but I think one of the things we always joked about ourselves is we're just what you would call casual super fans. We are super fans of Star Wars, but we don't know a ton. And you're being humble, Travis, and you say you don't know a lot, but regardless of how much you know, we know for sure you know more than us about this topic.
Yes.
So we're glad to have you, and let's talk about this. So, like I said, Journeyman, did you even know that this was a thing? Like, did you know that this was the news that broke today?
No, I had no clue. I
Yeah.
just hearing it now for the first time. So.
Yeah, so I saw this on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, this morning. Daniel Richtman, who's an insider scooper, whatever you want to call him, I guess in his Patreon posted this leak/rumor that they're looking at potentially recasting Baylan Skull, which we figured could potentially happen, and they're talking about Abeloth, and so we knew that this was kind of the direction that they were going. I mean, just like the thumbnail here, like you see the Mortis gods at the end of the finale of Ahsoka, and I mean the father's pointing off in the distance. We knew Baylan was getting called by something. We didn't know what, and I think that that's kind of where we want to start the discussion. So let's first. I wrote down a few just like topics that we can talk about here first, guys, and I think we should talk about like who Abeloth is first of all, because I don't think a lot of people know this character. Obviously, Abeloth has never been featured in the movies, and hasn't really been touched on in the TV shows. Been touched on, but kind of like indirectly in a lot of ways. So let's talk about who Abeloth is now. Travis, Abeloth is first introduced, if I'm understanding, in the Fate of the Jedi novel series, right? 9 books. Is it 9 books?
Yes. And I'm realizing now how difficult it is to do this when the thing that you can use to cheat and go, hey, yeah, sure, I know, is the thing filming you, so you can't do it. But I believe it is 9 books.
Yeah, I think it is 9 books. I think it was last week we were talking about, and I was telling you, Journeyman, how I've started reading the Legends novels.
Yeah.
And I'm listening to them via an audiobook, which is the same thing.
It's the
We'll
same
just
thing.
call it the same thing. But I'm doing that because even though it's not canon, I want to feel inspired again. I want to feel like, I don't know, there's something to look forward to and theorize about, which is exactly what we're going to be doing tonight. So Abeloth is introduced in that series. Let's go all the way back to the beginning, though. Where does Abeloth come from? My understanding, Travis and Journeyman, is that Abeloth it goes all the way back to the Mortis gods, the ones who are Force celestials, force deities, um, whatever you want to call them, and she's a servant to the ones, right?
She, from what little I know, she was a mortal, which is an interesting distinction between her and the Father, the Son. I almost said the Holy Spirit. The Father, the Son, and the daughter. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
She's actually a mortal being who is taken in by them, becomes a servant, and then becomes the mother because she becomes so entwined with that family.
Yeah, so you have the father, the mother, the daughter, and the son. And she becomes the mother because obviously we know from the Clone Wars series arc, the Mortis arc, that the daughter and the son are in constant friction, constant battle. They represent both two opposite aspects of the force. I mean, I think you can sum it up in the daughter is selfless and the son is selfish in a lot of ways. To sum it up with one word. So they're in constant battle, light versus dark, and she becomes the mother because she's able to of bridge the gap between them. That's not the best way to frame it, but she's able to foster peace bring peace to the family.
That's actually what the way you put it, I think, is actually perfect. We'll get to that later.
Okay. Yeah, so she fosters peace in the ones. This is also I looked it up. This is like 100,000 years before the Battle of Yavin. So we're talking way at the beginning of the Star Wars universe. All right, way back. And so like you mentioned, Abeloth, who's not Abeloth at this time, she's just serving as the mother. She is mortal, and so she is decaying. She is growing old. She's gonna die. She's mortal, and so she bathes in the pool of knowledge. And there's something else that she does as
She
well.
drinks from the Wheel of Fortune or something. I
The
think
Wheel
it.
of Fortune.
No, I
There's
think it was. I think it was the Pool of Fortune. It was something of fortune, but
there's like a
I'm.
pool that she bathes in, something that she drinks, but she does that and she becomes immortal, but it ends up corrupting her. It ends up bringing about this darkness inside of her. And what I think is really interesting, I think you'll like this, Journeyman, is where the father from the Mortis arc, we know that the father is the one who maintains balance between the son and the daughter. That's kind of his thing,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
He's the father, he's balance. Well, just as the daughter and the son are opposites of each other, light and dark, Abeloth, the mother, we'll call her the mother, is given the title the bringer of chaos. And so while the father is balance, the opposite of balance is chaos. And so there's that distinction between mother, father, and then daughter, son. So,
Yeah.
am I doing a good job so far? I don't know.
Well, I was reading on Wikipedia and just trying and gain some knowledge here. It said she eventually became the mother, keeping the peace between the father's wearing son and daughter as part of the family. So she was essentially the mother of the whole family. Like she was keeping everything sort of together as everyone was kind of fighting. The father keeping the son and daughter kind of whole. She was keeping the whole family together as well.
Yes.
So she was kind of being the actual mother of the whole family.
Yes.
That's really what I've got so far. I'll keep reading, but I do like that dynamic though. Like they're actually making it into a family once again, kind of bringing the family dynamic into it.
Yeah. So, Travis, is this all explained in the novels, or is this something that's been conjured up outside? It is explained in the novels. Okay.
Yeah, but sorry, I'm laughing because you know the painting of the father like going like this, and the daughter and the son are with him. When you said that the father is the balance and she's the chaos, the image that went through my head is another one of those cave paintings, but it's the father driving home from work to find the mother throwing all of his stuff out the window onto the front lawn.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting, right? I love that. I love how I knew that she was called the Bridger of Chaos, right? But I guess I never put the pieces together of like she represents the opposite of what the father was. And so I think that's cool. Yeah, I'm you just picture them as like a family, right? Like that's what it sounds like. This is just one big happy family, and the mom's like, whipping the children into shape, like get your act together, and the father's just kind of sitting there like, I am balanced. Um, but that's what ends up happening is she bathes in this pool, drinks of the cup, whatever happens, just things.
She drank from the font of power and bathed in the pool of knowledge. That's what
Thank
it
you.
says on here.
Thank you.
Her
Yeah.
actions corrupted her, transforming the mother into a twisted, immortal entity known as Abeloth. And the reason she did that is she was growing old, and like you said, she was immortal. So while the daughter, and the son were keeping on living, she was getting old, and she was worrying about basically dying and wanting to keep her family with her. So that's why she did all that in the first place.
Yeah, so that ends up happening, and then I believe the story goes that the father, after she becomes this corrupted being, the father takes the son and the daughter, leaves the planet, and then you posted something in the Discord, Travis. Which shout out, Travis is in the Discord, Drayman's in the Discord. If you want to be part of the Discord, there's a link to the Discord in the description of this live stream. You can click that. It's free. You can access it and join us outside of these streams where we have conversations. But Travis, you posted something there, which I believe is kind of like the next part of the story is doesn't the sun, or maybe was it the sun or just the Mortis gods? Someone, no, wait, it was who enlists the help of somebody from Alderaan to like manufacture this technology to keep Abeloth on a planet. Was that what you posted, or was that something else?
I posted something. I posted about the Drengir from High Republic, but I did mention. I think it's that where I am in the expanded universe, and people who are watching this will know I'm in like the Jedi Academy trilogy. That's where I am. So like, there's like 30 years in publication between Fate of the Jedi and that. But yeah, the father, the son, and the daughter enlist. I believe they're called the Killiks, very similar to like the Geonosians, to create. I believe it was called Center Point Station. They basically take her and they put her in a black hole, and they use Center Point Station as a way to keep her in there.
Yeah,
basically keep it from that, and nothing can come out of that black hole until she destroys it.
Yeah, because so they basically exile her somewhere, which we'll get to this, but we this is Legends, obviously. This is the expanded universe, so this is not canon necessarily. But we kind of led to assume that she could be exiled on Peridia, which is in Ahsoka season 1. That's kind of what we're assuming. So now you mentioned that Center Point Station. I think there was one more thing too, that the Killiks, who I believe were from Alderaan, I think I read that somewhere. Anyway, they put her on this planet surrounded by black holes, but this doesn't contain her power, obviously, right? So that's kind of like the origins of Abeloth. The next thing I wanted to talk about is like, what is the story of Abeloth in the EU? This is something I'm exploring right now. I in Legends, I'm starting with the Fate of the Jedi trilogy, which is the last books of the Legends. And Travis made fun of me last week and was like, "Why did you start there?" No, you didn't make fun of me, but you were like, "It's going to be confusing. You're starting at the end."
Like, because the three characters that you mentioned that you saw that you met, you were like, "Who are these people?" And I'm like, I'm meeting them now in the books that I'm reading, like in the Jedi Academy, and you're mentioning Corran Horn's son, and I'm like, I just met Corran Horn, like that. You're talking about his son. I'm like, oh gosh.
Yeah, so you have Valen Horn, who is it, right? No, is that his name, Valen Horn?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, his first name is Valen. In the first book,
you watch, someone's gonna say like that's his Valen's son is his great grandson actually, and I missed a couple horns in there at some point.
No, it's definitely it's Corrin's son is definitely Valen. I know that for sure. It's clicking in my brain now. But the Fate of the Jedi, not trilogy, but it's like we said, a 9-book series is where we're introduced to Abeloth. And I don't think we need to do a deep dive into all 9 books, but from which you can remember, because you've read the books, obviously, right, Travis?
Nope.
No, you haven't? Okay. Travis hasn't read the
No.
books. That's fine. But based off of what you know, what is kind of what is the story of Abeloth? I know a little bit. Like I know that Abeloth, even from what I'm uh, reading, listening to right now, is there is a dark power lurking out in the universe somewhere that is corrupting the minds of these Jedi and causing them to basically they think everyone around them is imposters. They Valen sees his mom and he's like, "You're not my mom." Then he sees his dad and he's like, "You're not my dad." And then Luke, he's like, "No, that's not Luke." He's seeing everybody as imposters. He's being drawn in by this dark side power. I have not been introduced to who or what that dark side or that power is in the books, but spoiler alert, we all know that it's Abeloth. Like I think these books have been around for almost 20 years. So we know that that's Abeloth. So from what you know, Travis or Journeyman, I know that you're probably reading. Like, what are some of the things that Abeloth can do? What's kind of the story in the expanded universe of Abeloth? Are you guys
So
privy
do
to
you
those
kind of
things?
want me to expand on Abeloth a little bit more, just so we kind of get a full picture
Yeah,
for all of us?
keep it brief. I don't want to read the whole. I think Wikipedia is like it's a long page on
Yeah,
Abeloth,
yeah,
but
yeah. I'm not
in the,
reading the whole thing, but I'm just saying. So she, like we said, they got Centerpoint Station and trapped her in there, and then um, she eventually escaped to whenever it says on here, whenever the current of the Force was altered and the flow of time changed. Basically, meaning like basically whatever that means. And so the son and daughter would go get her every time that she escaped and
okay,
try and bring them back. And they've been doing that for, thousands of years. And it
mm-hmm.
says the reason it is that has stopped at that point was when Anakin refused to take over as the father
Yeah,
in in the Clone Wars.
yeah,
So
because the Mortis gods disappeared. Son dies, the father dies,
so
and the daughter dies.
my prediction at this point, just from reading that, is that's what this season 2 is going to be about, is like regaining back kind of he's essentially the father at this point, so it's kind of returning her back to Centerpoint Station. I think that's what the whole goal of season 2 is probably going to be,
Or at the very
is like,
least keeping her at bay from
yeah, keeping her at bay at
wreaking
least.
chaos in the known galaxy where Thrawn has returned.
Right.
Travis, did you have something to add to that?
Yeah. I put in the Discord the Drengir, the plant based villains from the High Republic, and
Okay.
how those possibly, and I highlighted the similarities between. There's actually some shocking similarities between Abeloth and the Drengir and their motivations. The Drengir are these plant creatures that came from the outer reaches, and they will possess a Jedi, make them basically afraid of everything, and
Mm,
then take them over, and then they form like a hive mind. So if there was a way to hint around that Abeloth has been around for a while, so it doesn't feel out of left field, saying that that's her and she's in control of the Drengir would be a way to do it.
mm-hmm.
Because just like I do remember very briefly, like iTunes would have little previews, like 10, you could listen to an audiobook for like 30 seconds. And I would listen to the Fate of the Jedi ones in one part. I think it was Boba Fett and somebody else. That's why you're going to be confused. You're going to be asking, why is Boba Fett hanging out with everybody now? Did I miss something? But there's every time Abeloth ends up somewhere, she leaves a plant like residue or a fungus
Mm.
that starts growing, just like the Drengir, which is a
Oh,
pretty. Yeah, so I posted that in the Discord. You can see it there.
I love that.
But
So there are potential tie-ins and connections stemming to the
yeah,
High Republic.
and spoilers for the High Republic, specifically for the book, I believe, Into the Shadows. Or there's so many books in the High Republic that have the word shadows or dark in them that it's really easy to confuse them. I think it's Into the Dark by Claudia Gray.
Okay.
we they go to a state. The Jedi end up on a station called another station that's not Center Point Station. It's called the Maxine Station,
Okay.
where the Drengir have been imprisoned by the Sith, because the Sith realize, okay, these guys are bad news. So they like have these enchanted statues that keep the Drengir at bay. And the Jedi make the mistake of thinking that the statues are bad. So they're like, okay, we got to get these statues off the station. So they take them off the station. And then they find out very quickly, oh, these statues weren't like the forensics people or whatever. Or like, these aren't evil statues. These statues are meant to keep something at bay. So whatever you did, you took them away from the thing they were stopping. And then they go back to the station and the whole place is overrun by Drengir. It sounds a lot like what Journeyman was reading about Abeloth. It's very similar where you're like, it's even a station too. You're like, oh, okay.
Well, and it's a lot to process, a lot to take in, just because I think the history of Abeloth in Legends, and potentially like you're talking about even stemming to the High Republic, there's so much there. But when you're saying statues, the first thing I'm almost, because I'm looking at it right now, is do you think that could even tie into the statues of the Mortis gods?
No, these statues were like they're like human sized statues. Like they literally take them and they load them into the smuggler. They're stuck on there with a smuggler who doesn't want to be there. It's really funny, but they have to load these statues onto their ship. So yeah, I don't think you would. The ones on Peridia, I don't think you'd be getting onto the Millennium Falcon.
Yeah, probably not, unless
I
they
don't know. I don't know if this is a big part of it, but I'm reading now that like even Luke and Ben were even trying to hunt her down in terms of Legends, and so I don't know if that's going to play
if that
like
ties in.
If that ties into movie stuff where they're gonna go like the Avengers route, you know. So like, is that kind of like the end game of everything, of like bringing everyone essentially back at that point?
Well, and I want to kind of go back in, and maybe you can do this while I'm talking here, Journeyman, to kind of get an idea of what her powers are. And Travis, you can add too. But one thing that I think is really, really interesting that I know about Abeloth is, again, these are spoilers for Legends, the expanded universe, all that good stuff. But Luke himself, in so many words, basically says that this is beyond the Force. Maybe Luke doesn't say that, but like Abeloth is described as an entity that is beyond like power that anybody has ever come across. I mean, Travis, to your knowledge, these are the last books of the expanded universe Legends. No, is there more?
There's one. After Fate of the Jedi, you get Crucible, which is kind of like the I wouldn't say swan song. It's just like one last story with Luke, Leia, Han, and Lando, and all of them. And then you get a big time jump to Legacy, which is about Luke's grandson. Luke's it's either his grandson or his great grandson, Cade Skywalker. But that's another story.
A big jump. Okay, so but it is towards the end of the expanded universe Legends, and I mean, like, it's described as Abeloth of being like the big bad. Like this is like the big power of, you know, this dark power doesn't necessarily transcend the Force, but it's a big threat. And long story short, Luke has to recruit Darth Krayt, who is a Sith Lord. Literally, it takes the Jedi and the Sith to I don't know if they defeat Abeloth, or at least put. I think they do.
Is it Darth Krayt?
Is it Darth Krayt, Journeyman?
Darth Krayt's the villain in Legacy.
I heard Sith. It says a young Sith, Vistari Kai, saw Abeloth's true form and eventually joined the Skywalkers as part of an alliance.
What's the name?
Vestari Kai, Vestari T-A. Where'd it go? I got an ad pop up. Hold on.
Is it safe? Is it all right?
Holy crap. VESTARAKHIA. That's their name.
Okay, but it is a Sith. This
It
person
is a Sith. Yeah.
Okay, so it takes the Jedi and the Sith to defeat Abeloth. Is that right?
Both the Jedi and Sith fought and killed Abeloth. Yeah.
So that's
but it kind of goes
interesting.
on. But yeah. Well, and I'm still reading here. So her powers, she kind of has like telekinesis powers, like she can get into the minds. We kind of understand that. Where is it? I'll get back to you, Han. I've lost my place.
Okay, we'll come back to you in a second. But...
Yeah, Dwayne Johnson keeps popping up and interrupting him. He's like, I don't want to see your Santa Claus movie.
So she basically, she has kind of like psychosis. She can use, she's basically very powerful. She has unlimited power, all that. But the thing that, if you kind of want to understand it, it says Abeloth's strength or physical augmentation was a dozen times that of Luke Skywalker, who was widely recognized as the most powerful Force user in the galaxy at that time.
What if, when you said unlimited power, this came in my mind. What if one of the first times we see Abeloth, she's like,
I am the Senate.
No, you know what's more scary than being the Senate? It's coming home and like the father coming home with the kids, and then she says, "I am the mother." That is the most terrifying thing that you can hear. Like, oh, I am your mother. Open.
Yeah.
So she basically was kind of like the father in a way. Like he can use both sides of the Force. That's kind of what she is. But she just like very, very powerful.
Very, very powerful. Yeah. That's what it's. If it takes the Sith and the Jedi teaming up to defeat her, we know we're dealing with a powerful.
She also had an ability to boost her walking speed.
Oh man. Yeah. I can tell you, as someone who misbehaved, my mom could do that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so. Doesn't she like in Legends? Doesn't she like basically rip apart Coruscant too? Like, doesn't she like just completely obliterate Coruscant? I know that she like impersonates a senator or something and becomes like the chief of state of the Republic, the New Republic, whatever you want to call it. Like, because she can like take the form of people and get in their brains, and like she becomes chief of state and all that stuff. So, she indeed has.
I can't find it.
She indeed has unlimited power.
I do have something to add to all of this, and I think it could foreshadow, even not knowing much about Abeloth. Part of what's interesting about the father, the son, and the daughter is how they are an allegory or basically foreshadowing of the balance of the Force. Once the daughter dies or the light dies, it's basically about how the men in Star Wars are always driven by a woman. You think about it, it's always about a mother dying, or a loved one dying, or a sibling dying. It's Anakin goes to the dark side because his mother dies. Ben Solo, and then of course Ben Solo comes back to the light side because his mother dies, and she brings there's that whole thing. But it's this idea where it's just this broad strokes notion that the father's the balance, the son and the daughter, the dark and the light are always at odds. But if it means the mother, like if the mother is the key, the mother is the thing that brings the son and the daughter together. That idea that it doesn't matter what allegiance you all have, everyone has a mom. And I think that's what's important. Like in Star Wars, it's when Padme dies. That's detrimental. That's the entire saga.
Mm-hmm.
Padme dying is what causes Anakin to go to the dark. Padme dying is what sets Luke and Leia apart and on their respective journeys.
Mm-hmm.
So I think with Abeloth coming in, it's an interesting idea of the female figure who always has to die in these movies. And they've even made jokes about how the moms always die, like the moms always die in these movies.
Mm-hmm.
Like Anakin's mom dies, Leia dies, and there's probably a few others that Rey's mom dies.
Mm-hmm.
It's that idea that, well, now that mother's back, what does that mean?
Mm-hmm.
That like that other balance that the balance that the father can't bring. So say like you have Darth Vader, what if Padme was there too? How different would that be? Except she's evil, and she's gonna throw your stuff out on the front lawn when you come home from work. That's like there's something very interesting there, I think.
I think you do have a good point though. Like the fact that the reason she got her powers in the first place was because of the family and her not wanting to lose it. From her dying, she ends up being the one that stays alive, but she still loses her family. So what kind of rage is she gonna inflict on everyone because she doesn't have that family anymore?
It is the kind of common archetype, I guess, in Star Wars of thinking the misbelief that one must have power in order to control people, the greediness of wanting power in order to have control. You see it with Abeloth.
Yeah.
You see it with Anakin. I need power in order to have control. And whereas the Jedi were like, Yoda's like, no, let the will of the Force play out. And of course they had their own issues, but it's that dichotomy.
Even with Kylo, I mean, that's so.
Yeah.
To your point though about Coruscant, she basically did rip up Coruscant. She sent like earthquakes and volcanoes to pop up around Coruscant, but she didn't like entirely like rip it in whole, but she did really massive damage towards it.
Just almost, I mean, she's kind of like a goddess almost, like has that deity like nature can bring about natural disasters, can control your mind, can do all these things, which I think like we've talked about a little bit of like what, obviously we didn't get too much in the weeds of what happened in Legends, but I kind of want to take this in not a different direction, but let's think in terms of canon now. Like we've talked about Legends and what was there. Let's talk about canon and the implications. Couple of chats. I think a lot of people are just listening, which is great. Thank you all for being a part of this discussion. But we have Tony here, of course. Tony, it's great to have you here. He says, "Ooh, Travis is now a celebrity." So there you go. Travis is a huge asset to the channel. We're so glad that he's here.
Can't hear asset without hearing it in IG-11's voice in The Mandalorian. The asset.
Yeah. Oh, The Mandalorian. I need to go back and watch that first season. Really, all the seasons again. I need to go back and watch all the seasons, especially season 3. Now that I've had time to digest it a little bit, but separate string. The Skywalker Academy. Thank you, Skywalker Academy, for being here. I just have to plug this channel real quick. I've actually been talking to Skywalker Academy over Discord. Journeyman, you would actually probably really like this. Travis, you would like this too. But Skywalker Academy has, I don't know if you all are familiar with his channel, but I
follow him.
You do? Perfect. So do you know about Kyrol, Jedi Apprentice? So Skywalker Academy is putting together a fan fiction audiobook about a Jedi apprentice named Kyrol. It is like, it's top notch. I listened to it. I'm like, I can picture this character in the actual Star Wars universe. And not only that, he's an incredible storyteller. The story that he's writing, basically it takes place from the transition of the Old Republic to the High Republic. And there's Kyrell, this Jedi apprentice, who is having to. I don't want to get any spoilers because it's fascinating. I want you all to go listen to it. I think he has 7 chapters out right now. But I've been talking to him, and I'm like, one of the things that I wanted to do with the channel is take the Jedi, the character, this character in my picture here. This is not a real Jedi. This is literally AI. This is, if I wanted to create
I've looked at it. It's
Yeah.
a mixture of a bunch of High Republic Jedi, because I looked at it and I'm looking at my books. I'm like, that looks so familiar. It looks kind of like this guy, but not. And I'm like, oh, it's probably AI.
It's
It looks
AI.
It looks like Reith Silas from the High Republic. That looks
Okay.
like the major template for that.
So I'm not familiar with that character. I need to go look, but I put in to AI, like, if I was a Jedi, if I wanted to be a Jedi, if I could have my ideal Jedi, this is what he would look like. And one of the fun things I've wanted to do with this channel is do exactly what Skywalker Academy was doing. I hadn't even seen his channel, but I would love to create like a fan fiction audiobook series with this character. And so I've been talking, I literally didn't even know that Skywalker Academy's channel existed, but I came across it and I was like, this is exactly what I want to do. So I'm talking to him about potentially doing a crossover between him having Kyrell and me having this Jedi, and them being in the same universe in Star Wars, but in the same universe, and my character having his story on my channel, his character having his story on his channel, and then like they have crossovers. And like that way, that you kind of have to go to both channels to be able to do that. And one of the cool things I want to do is potentially, with my story in particular, I would love to make it almost a choose your own adventure where senators of the channel members, or just people in the community kind of actually get to have a say in how the character story plays out. I think that'd be a really fun way to like involve the community and be like, how do you want this character story to go? Where do you want to see him go? What do you want to see him deal with? What are his misbeliefs? What are his fears? What's his archetype going to be? So be on the lookout for that. I'm actually like, I didn't even know Skywalker Academy was going to be here, but I do
I've
have
talked to him before.
Really? That's cool.
Yeah.
I have a community post going out tomorrow morning. I think it actually comes out at midnight tonight, that is asking for names of said Jedi. Again, the Jedi in my picture here. It doesn't even have a name. We need names, and so I'm asking for suggestions. People, if you're listening to this,
I can do that.
Travis probably has some ideas, but put your suggestions, tie them to that post that you see come out on the community tab of the channel, for a chance to have me select that name for the Jedi. And in fact, I probably won't select it myself. I'm probably going to allow the channel members to vote in their own poll. So if you're a member of the channel, a senator of the channel, I'm going to put it in a poll and let the channel members decide what the Jedi's name is going to be.
I
So
was telling Skywalker,
that's kind of a little fun thing.
Academy.
Skywalker Academy, I'm glad you're here. Says wish he could stay for the full stream.
I like
Go for it, Travis.
name.
Sorry,
No, I'm distracted. I got this lady's mouth right next to me, and she like really needs some Listerine or something, because it's starting to stink. Jeez. Oh, wait, hold on. There we go.
Yeah.
But no, I thought this is creeping me out. But with Skywalker Academy, I was actually telling I believe I've seen him on another channel, Star Wars Lads, who I follow. I believe he's popped in there, and we've talked about my episode 10, which has Jar Jar Binks in it. And I was telling him, like, and he was asking, he's like, what? He's like, you have Jar Jar? Like, how does it work? And then I started explaining, and he was like, oh, that's kind of cool. I'm putting words into his mouth, but yeah.
Yeah. No, Journeyman, I think you would like this, because I know, like, for us, it's kind of hard to read. We don't like to just open up a book old school and read. But Skywalker Academy, it's in a playlist on his channel. I'll send you the link to his channel. It's a fascinating, he's done a really good job and it's very like when lightsabers ignite, it's not just the lightsabers ignite. He has the sound effects in the background.
Oh, that's
When
cool.
there's blasters firing, he has blasters firing in the background. So Travis, I highly recommend it. Journeyman, I recommend it. Anybody who's watching this, I highly recommend his channel. And in fact, I mean, I've meant to tie his channel to my channel because him and I are going to work together. I think on the story for my potential character. So throw those suggestions on that post that comes out tomorrow. And
I do like Tony's names for your character, though.
Acolyte Killer.
I think the
I'm
next
nervous
one's more
because Tony-
confusing, but
Darth Jedi. These are very original names, Tony. Great job.
the Caddyshack
But,
the Caddyshack gopher. That's what I call
Yeah.
Basil.
Yeah, now I'm concerned that I'm allowing you all choose the name. I'm like, okay, maybe I don't want this to happen. And I'm even more concerned because Tony is a channel member, and so he's going to
Darth
have the
Jedi.
final say on what this is. So you all better come up with some good names because
Darth Jedi.
Tony gets to
If you
choose.
if you put a comma in the middle of Jedi, it sounds like a name.
Yeah,
It becomes Jedi.
Jedi. Yeah. Or you just sound like Palpatine Jedi.
Jedi.
Okay, well, we derailed that, but it was good to have Skywalker Academy in the chat. Let's go back to why we're here and just talk about Abeloth. What was I? What were we going to talk about? Oh, we were going to talk about what it could mean, what potential storylines could be in canon, because we've talked a lot about Legends. So let's talk about like the conclusions that we can draw, the similarities we can draw so far of like Balin. Like we can already see that Balin, we don't know a lot about Balin. We don't know a lot about his backstory. But we know that he's being haunted by something, it would seem like, and we know that he's being drawn in by something. One thing that I found interesting, I know I'm going back to Legends here, but I believe that Abeloth disguised herself as a light side being. That's not the best way to phrase that, but wasn't one of the ways she manipulated people was by making them perceive her as a good guy? Am I
Abeloth
correct in
was
that?
able to possess or switch bodies. Yes.
So in Legends, Luke he got around a lot, so he had a lot of girlfriends throughout. Like a lot of before Mara Jade, the well-known one, he had a lot of girlfriends, and I believe she impersonates Callista. I could be wrong about, because he legit has like 8 of them. Like there was a period where every book he had a different girlfriend, and then the next book opened with it didn't work out, but I think she impersonates, I believe, Callista, and it gets to Luke, because I think it's this idea of it goes back to that idea of the mother. Everyone's desire. Everyone has that woman in their life that means the world, and when you lose that person, it really affects you. And so, for him, it was just like, hey, this is like that girl you lost, and I'm gonna screw with you by making you think of her, especially when he's married to Mara Jade already.
Yeah,
you can look at it. Journey,
answer your
check that.
Yeah, to answer your question, yes, she was able to switch bodies. She, a lot of the times when Skywalker was like gonna kill the person that Abeloth was in, she basically left his body, their body, kind of like Palpatine has done a couple of times, trying to switch bodies or uses Force Ghost there. And it's interesting though, that was ultimately her weakness as well. So like, while she was possessing all these bodies, and it doesn't really say the reason for doing so, but that was like it was her weakness, because every time that she would switch a body, it weakened her almost to the point of dying.
Interesting.
But that's all in Legend, so they could revise that. But
yeah,
there could be another reason.
Well, and I bring up the fact that she disguised herself as a good entity, and the fact that I think it's important to remember that whatever Balin is being drawn by, he thinks that, and I'm really summing this up, but part of his motivation for seeking out this power is for what he thinks is good intentions. He says that there's this endless cycle between, I think he says the Jedi and the Sith, of like this good and evil chaos.
Yeah.
And he wants to put an end to it. That's his motivation. That's his goal. And he's seeking that. He's being brought to Peridia by what he thinks is able to accomplish that. But we know that he's literally being drawn in by something that's the complete opposite of that, and is something that is looking to wreak havoc on the Star Wars universe as we know it. So, where do you guys think this is going? Journeyman, you kind of already touched on it, like of what Anakin and even or Ahsoka and even Anakin's role could be going forward. But what do you think is going to happen? Do you think that Abeloth is going to be the type of character where we just see her as a villain in Ahsoka season 2, or do you think maybe Abeloth carries forward even into movies, like even a trilogy of movies? And then to go one step even further, so I remember the question, do you think that this ties in with anything of the sequel trilogy, or perhaps even extends beyond the sequel trilogy? So I know I posed a lot there.
So to answer your first question, like what implications does this have going forward after season 2 of Ahsoka, or even for season 2 of Ahsoka? I think that it's going to continue after the movies, because as we just read, or as I read, like Abeloth is a godlike character. The Mortis god, she is basically kind of one of those. So she's the female version of Thanos at this point for the Star Wars universe. So if you're gonna follow the Avengers kind of timetable for Star Wars, like Dave's doing his movie, John's doing his movie, like you're gonna have to have a team up sort of movie, all these movies coming in at some point. I feel like Abeloth is kind of the Thanos of that version for Star Wars. So that's what I see it going to. Like they have to defeat Abeloth, because I think it would be cool for. I think it would be a really interesting notion just to kind of tie everything together, even to the sequels, of giving everyone a reason to be where they are. So like that be the reason that Luke goes away. That be the reason that Ahsoka ends up wherever her story ends up. Like a lot of the threads could be pulled, and then you can somehow bring back Palpatine at that point. I feel like you could weave it in a way to where it's a big enough threat to where it needs everyone, but then that's also the reason why everyone disbands. Kind of what we see within the Avengers now. Thanos was the ultimate thing, and then what did everyone kind of do after Thanos? They've all kind of split up and gone their different ways, and then that's why we're going to get Avengers 5 eventually, like where everyone starts to kind of team up again. I think that's kind of what they're trying to do.
What do you think, Travis?
Yeah, apologies. My AirPods died, so it switched over to my iPhone microphone. It might not sound as good. But one thing that is interesting that I don't really think people have talked about is we don't really know what happens to Thrawn between Ahsoka and the sequels. We don't know what happens. Presumably he dies at some point. But in Legends, Luke ended up teaming up with the Sith in order to take down Abeloth. There's a possibility where Thrawn, it would take a lot, but what if Thrawn ends up teaming up with the good guys, and this is how the Empire ends? Like the Empire ends not being destroyed. The Empire ends, and this happened in Legends with the Empire of the Hand, which was like a splinter group that Mara Jade was part of, and they eventually form a truce and start working with the Jedi. You see like I think in the Fate of the Jedi books, you're going to meet Sunter Fell. You're going to see a bunch of characters with the last name Fell. These are descendants of one of the main Imperial from those books.
Okay.
So I wouldn't be surprised if we see Thrawn and his empire teaming up with Ahsoka and everyone to take down this threat if it comes to that. I actually think that would be a really neat idea.
If they had, so yeah, they're portraying Thrawn as the big bad of this is the heir
So
to the
you
empire.
remember in Thrawn's whole reason for being sent, and this is kind of the same in the expanded universe in Legends, and both that and in canon, the reason why Thrawn was missing is because the Emperor sent him out to the outer reaches because there was a larger threat out there, and he knew. This is expounded upon in the Aftermath trilogy by Chuck Wendig, which I recommended to you. Palpatine sent people. He had stations. Palpatine heard a call. This is something for like an entire. If you read those books, specifically Empire's End, you would be like, oh my gosh, there's a lot here that they've laid the groundwork for. Palpatine heard a call from somebody in the Force, and that call is the reason why he sent Thrawn out into the outer reaches, why he sent other Imperials such as Gallius Rax, who he was just the main villain in those books. But having stations sent out into the outer reaches because he knew there was some larger dark side power out there lurking, and he didn't know what it was. And I think that's even hinted at in Battlefront 2. They go into that a little bit, but that's basically what this is. So if Thrawn was out in the outer reaches because he was waiting to take down the larger threat, this is the larger threat.
Yeah, and this is Legends, right?
In Legends, the implication is the Yuzon Vong, the aliens, larger threat, and it kind of makes it so Thrawn so Thrawn was a good guy the whole time. Well, why not just follow through with it and make him a good guy the whole time? I think he's sophisticated enough where there's more to him than just muhuha bad guy. I think it's sort of like that character Abeloth shows up and he says, this is the reason this is why the Emperor chose me. This is what I'm like. The Emperor hates aliens, but he chose me to lead a fleet. And I think this is what it's for. I think there could be something there.
Yeah. And this is, I mean, isn't this even kind of touched on in a similar way in the Thrawn canon books? Like, doesn't the Emperor, isn't one of the reasons why Thrawn is there in the first place is there is some lurking threat that the Chiss, the Ascendancy, is aware of, and that Palpatine is also anticipating. And this is why Thrawn is kind of brought up in the ranks in the first place as an alien, because a Palpatine is anticipating some type of threat. We could assume that it is something like the Yuzon Vong, some alien race out in the wild regions of space, but it also could be Abeloth. It also could be Abeloth.
So what's your prediction at that point?
So in a perfect scenario, what I would love to happen, and I suppose what I will predict to happen, is Abeloth become. I think that they're working on a trilogy of movies prior to the sequels. I think that, and maybe it isn't like a trilogy, but I mean, you have the Mando movie, you have Heir to the Empire. I think there's at least one more movie in there that they're going to conjure up that's going to kind of maybe it could be like you have the Mando Grogu movie, you have Ahsoka season 2, which sets up Abeloth. You have Heir to the Empire movie that we know Dave Filoni is writing and directing, which is going to be primarily about Thrawn and his return to the galaxy. But maybe, as you're saying, Travis, I kind of think the same. Maybe Thrawn doesn't die. Maybe we don't see like that story thread just end with Thrawn's death. Well, maybe it comes out of nowhere, like Abeloth starts to lurk closer and closer, and it turns into, instead of like Thrawn, Heir to the Empire versus New Republic, it's we need Thrawn and the New Republic to combat this new threat.
Abeloth and the
transition to
Vong.
transition to Nuvi.
which
Which I
if
think,
the goal is to kind of parallel, like there's a lot of legends that just can't happen the way it did for obvious
Mhm.
reasons.
right.
But if they're really trying to line the two up as much as possible, having it be that the last remnant of the empire, because it's becoming more and more whittled down as it goes along, where Thrawn is basically it. It's clear that whatever the First Order is, it's a lot different than what he's doing. I don't think those are connected at all, because
No.
Thrawn's smart and Snoke is dumb. Like that's like really. But I think the best way to line it up with Legends is you have that last remnant of the Empire make peace with the New Republic. That would take a lot of that's like a lot of story right there. But I don't at this point. You look at what both sides have left at this point. It's almost seems like a natural thing to do.
Yeah. And I think what we're going to see is, and kind of like what you said, Journeyman, I think that this is an excellent way to explain why the characters are where they're at in the sequels. I think there is going to be an Avengers type moment where we see the Mandalorian, we see Ahsoka, we see Sabine, we see Ezra, we see Luke, we see Boba Fett. They're all going to come together in the end, right? Like they're just setting that up. Um,
We see
and
Sid from the Bad Batch is going to be there
yes,
too.
Sid pops up for the Bad Batch. Oh, maybe Omega. Who knows? They all come in, and in one of these movies that is, I think it's going to be this movie. There's a movie that hasn't been announced yet, and I think that this is going to be it. And we're going to see Luke. Something happens to Luke that sheds further light into why he goes to Octu. We know a little bit of what happened with Ben and his Jedi Order failing. But there's got to be, I think they're going to shed a little bit more light on it. And then to touch base on what you said, Journeyman, I think we're going to get to see firsthand of what Ahsoka and Anakin's new roles are going to be. We've touched on it a little bit, but I think it's important to touch on it again. Of like the father, daughter, and the son, their role was to keep Abeloth at bay. Like you said, Journeyman, the son and the daughter, their role was whenever she started doing stuff she wasn't supposed to do, they came in and they were like, go back to where you belong, basically, like stay out of this. Well, what happens in the Mortis arc? They all die. And like you said, Anakin doesn't take the place of the father in that moment.
No,
And so she is left to wreak havoc. So if you're bridging the gap, Anakin's the new father. He's the chosen one. He brings balance to the Force. Ahsoka has the connection to the daughter, the connection to Morai. I mean, the whole point of the Ahsoka show is about destiny. And Anakin, at the end of Ahsoka, we're basically being told, and Ahsoka says it to Sabine, we're exactly where we need to be. And it's because their job in the Star Wars universe at that moment, their goal is going to be to keep Abeloth away. And I don't think Abeloth is ever going to be destroyed, but I think the reason why we don't see Ahsoka and some of maybe even our other characters at the time of the sequel trilogy is because they're off dealing with Abeloth, and Luke is dealing with what happened with his Jedi Order, because he is Ahsoka. He isn't Anakin. He's a powerful Jedi Master, but his destiny doesn't lie with fending off Abeloth. That's directly tied.
At the time, yeah, like you said, like their goal at the time was to get Ezra, and by the will of the Force, they are where they need to be. Like she says it, so I think you're right. Like they don't need to necessarily worry. Like they're where they needed to be in the first place.
I thought of something. Hey, Journeyman, since you're the fact checker,
Okay.
in Discord you asked for Ryan asked me for some canon suggestions, and I suggested one called Master and Apprentice by Claudia Gray from 2019. And one thing, it's basically about Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan shortly before Phantom Menace. And one fascinating thing that book did is it listed a bunch of prophecies the Jedi had, not just the Chosen One prophecy. Journeyman, could you look up Master and Apprentice prophecies? There's a list. There's definitely a list of there's only like, I think it's like 5 or 6. But I think one of them might actually tie into exactly what we're talking about. And it didn't click until just now.
That's fun. Yeah, because they go into a little bit more detail about the Chosen One prophecy in that novel, right?
No, that isn't
really?
like authority, because really that he hasn't met Anakin yet, so he doesn't really have a reason to be thinking about that.
Okay. I'm just gonna read. I'm gonna read all the prophecies, and you tell me which one it is. So,
Oh, you got it. Cool.
Yeah, prophecy 1 is, "She who will be born to darkness will give birth to darkness."
No.
Prophecy 2, "When the Kyber that is not Kyber shines forth, the time of the prophecy will be at hand."
No, but I love how I'm seeing Ryan's head spinning already. He's like, "What's this?"
"When the righteous lose the light, evil once dead shall return."
No.
Number 4, "One will ascend to the highest of the Jedi despite the foreboding of those who would serve with him."
No. These
Kind
are
of
all
sounds
cool.
like Anakin, but
yeah.
On number 5, "Only through sacrifice of many Jedi will the Order cleanse the sin done to the Nameless. The danger of the past is not past, but sleeps in an egg. When the egg cracks, it will threaten the galaxy entire. When the Force itself sickens, past and future must split and combine. A chosen one shall come born of no father, and through him will ultimate balance and the Force be restored."
That's one. Well, that was kind of unintentionally, but yeah, that was like with the egg. I'm like, oh, keep going. But that's not the one.
So that one does touch on the Chosen One a little bit, though.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That sounds like the Chosen One prophecy, but that also just sounds like what it's setting up to be now.
Okay, but that was number 5.
That was number 5. Here's the last
Yeah,
one.
go number 6. But I want to revisit number 5, but do number 6.
"He who learns to conquer death will through its greatest student live again."
All right. But okay. I think it was number 5. But you can go through that list. You have them in front of you, so you might be able to see something, because they're not off the top of my head. But I think it's. Could you read number 5 again, please?
Only through sacrifice of many Jedi will the Order cleanse the sin done to the Nameless. The danger of the past is not past, but sleeps in an egg. When the egg cracks, it will threaten the galaxy entire. When the Force itself sickens, past and future must split and combine. A chosen one shall come born of no father, and through him will ultimate balance and the Force be restored.
It's interesting how they say no father, but yeah, actually, I feel like that's onto something. That's a lot of that does. Maybe it's just me. A lot of that sounds like what we're talking about right now.
Yeah. What's number 7?
I love how this is show now.
It was just 6. I think he said 6, and there's only 6 on here.
Oh,
Okay,
there's only
I thought
6.
there was.
Okay.
Wait, unless there's more on there. I could be wrong. That there.
No, I mean I can.
There may be only 6. That's
I think
interesting,
there's only
though.
6.
So, I mean, I think that I don't think we're done exploring the Chosen One prophecy.
But I think there's a lot there of this notion, especially with the son and the daughter having to work together, which we didn't really see in the Clone Wars at all.
Mm-hmm.
There's this notion in that prophecy. I think there's like this notion of the dark and even in Legends with Luke having to team up with Sith in order to stop this. There's something there with the dark and the light having to come together for this. And there's like, what dark side is there? There really is it. Like Kylo Ren isn't around yet. There's no Sith that we've seen.
Right. But what, as you were talking there, Travis, one thing that came to mind was Anakin's ability to use both sides of it inside the world between worlds. Of like when you're thinking of the light and dark coming together, his ability to wield it in the world between worlds, I think, is, it's not exactly what you're saying of like the Sith and Jedi coming together, but there is something to the fact of light and dark coming together to push back against some higher power.
It is
that being
also
Abeloth.
it's also interesting now that I think about it. We see the Jedi come back so many times, but after the prequels, the Sith are kind of you got Palpatine coming back, definitely, but even Kylo Ren and Snoke, they aren't Sith.
Mm-mm.
Why aren't the Sith coming back again? I feel like there could be something there, like we're seeing the end of the Sith in a sense. Kylo, like, technically the Emperor, yes, but he was alive the whole time.
Yeah, his motivation was to bring back the Sith in the sequel trilogy. Doesn't he say nothing will stop the return of the Sith?
Yeah, but he was off by himself doing his own thing.
Yeah, Also, this is really random, but I was just thinking about the Acolyte today and how when Kymir says peace is a lie, and that's part of the Sith code. Like if the Sith don't believe in peace, why does Sidious in Revenge of the Sith say once more the Sith will rule the galaxy and we shall have peace?
Like, yeah, like all Sith deals.
You do. I mean,
yeah. Only a Sith deals in absolutes.
There is that, but then also you do realize he's trying to brainwash a whole entire galaxy.
I am the Senate.
I mean, I'm just saying.
Oh yeah, and thank you, Journeyman, on behalf of both of us. Like, we put you through the ringer just then. I feel like making you go back and read everything. Like,
no, I've been needing to do some form of this because, like I said, I haven't watched anything. I don't really read anything. I'm just here giving my opinions and thoughts. So it's actually been a good exercise to go back and look at this stuff.
You're just looking at Luke's ex-girlfriends.
Yeah. He has a lot of them in Legends. I'm learning that.
It wasn't Mara Jade one?
That's his wife, yes.
That's his wife, but I think he also has a lot of flings.
But she showed up later, but then there was kind of like an off and on thing. Mara Jade ended up with Lando at one point. It was just, it's a lot. You're just like, oh my goodness.
It is certainly an expanded universe. There's a lot to get through.
Expanded universe.
It is a lot to get through. Yeah. I'm trying to think, is there anything else that you all can think of that any particular tie-ins that we could expect to see in Ahsoka season 2 and beyond? I mean, do you all think that this transcends the sequel trilogy, or do you think this doesn't tie into the sequels whatsoever? Because I think that's a big challenge and a big feat that they're going to have to figure out how to do.
I think for the most part, it's going to stay away from the sequels, because I feel like whenever you have something in there, people are just gonna riot no matter what about where it's going, and that's their opinion. They can do with it whatever they want, but I think for the most part, you kind of have to steer clear of it to a degree. But like me and you have said before, like, we're not gonna ignore where it's supposed to lead. Like, it is going to lead eventually to the sequels. So I think they have to steer clear from it from the most part and not make it obvious that's where they're going, because you kind of need to have fans on board with everything. But it's going to eventually lead there one way or the other. I just feel like if they're going to break it off, they need to write it in a way to where we do get the sequels, but have it make sense of why it left us with the sequels that we got.
What are you thinking, Travis?
My whole point.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's the thing. When Dave Filoni started with the prequels, it was no secret. Like, this, we're talking 2000. I think George Lucas was starting the Clone Wars in concept in 2005, because it took a long. Remember when the Clone Wars was released? It was the movie, and then boom, boom, boom. The first season came out like less than a year later. A lot of those episodes were done, so it was pretty much right after. And Dave has like talked about this in interviews. It's right after Revenge of the Sith. He was right in the Clone Wars. When Dave jumped on ship, Star Wars wasn't in the best place. Like people were still calling these movies, the prequels, awful. So he had to grow up in the thick of that, and to some extent he was probably with George Lucas when George was experiencing that hate and hearing that criticism. So Dave Filoni is no stranger to working in Star Wars that's criticized. He was instrumental in making the show that took the trilogy of movies that people hated like at one time, and made them love it by making a show out of it that everyone loved.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a long-winded way of saying that Dave Filoni, one thing that he does so well is he prioritizes the characters. You can put a character in a bad story. It can be a bad story, but it's still a good character. And what creative people do, something I always think about is non-creative people will tell you what can't be done or why it shouldn't be done. A creative person will just make it happen. Dave Filoni cares about the characters too much to worry about, oh, they're in a bad story. And basically what I'm saying is in Rise of Skywalker, Ahsoka, Kanan, Anakin are all voices that Rey hears at the end of that movie.
Mm-hmm.
His characters are in, except Anakin, but he definitely plays a huge part in defining what Anakin is now versus the prequels. He changed him up a little bit, but he has to build these stories. He knows very well. He isn't thinking like the sequel fans who are like, oh, the fans who are like, oh no, they're building up to the sequels. Just pretend they didn't happen. Dave Filoni is thinking, no, my characters, whether I had a say in it or not, are at the very end of the story. I have to explain how they got there. When he's watching it and he's hearing Ahsoka, Kanan, and I mentioned this in the Discord. I went off on a whole essay about how that could tie into Mortis and everything. But Dave Filoni as a creative, is probably thinking, and he probably has already planned out, where was Ahsoka when she was talking to Rey? If you remember, there was an interview that Dave did where he said that just because you hear Ahsoka's voice doesn't mean she's dead. Do you know? Yeah. Is that well? He put some thought into that. He probably has her story. I would not be surprised if Ahsoka's story ends where we see her in Rise of Skywalker. That would not be outrageous, because the Clone Wars ends with a jump to Darth Vader in the original trilogy era. It wouldn't surprise me if this ends with the sequel era, where we say like, hey, well, let's see what Ahsoka's up to now.
Yeah. And to that point, I don't think Dave could ever kill this character permanently and get rid of this character. And so I think that she is going to ascend to a level that is similar to she's a Jedi already, so she's always going to have
she's always going to have the Jedi label whether she wants to or not.
That's not actually what I meant. I meant to say that she's connected to the Force in a way that Anakin is. There's the whole Force Ghost thing where you can achieve immorality through the cosmic force. Immortality, I think, is what I was trying to say. And so obviously, like, if she learns that power, and I think it's pretty obvious that she will, she's never going to go away. But I think it's more than that. I think, just like Anakin says, you're more than that. What does he say? You're more than that because I'm more than that.
I'm more than. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that she will never go away.
If she ever does go away, it's going to be like the Yoda treatment, like where he goes basically peacefully and no one's like really upset they'll be upset that she like dies or whatever, but they're not going to be mad like they actually killed off the character per se, you know?
Yeah. Well, and Tony says here, Ahsoka is the definition of a sequel. She dies and returns too many times.
I
She's
feel
the
like her character has earned it though.
Yeah, for sure.
she's the turd we don't want to flush.
Just keeps coming back.
Well, I wouldn't say that, but okay.
Yeah.
No, I really like Ahsoka, but it is when you think about it, like Dave Filoni, it's both a challenge for him because we don't know. Like someone will probably say, "Oh, Dave probably hates that they put Ahsoka and Kanan in Rise of Skywalker," and maybe, but I think he's thinking of them as people. I'm sure these characters as people. They're not just things he writes. At this point, like when you know you love a character, when people get mad when a character does something they feel is out of character, like he would never do. Luke Skywalker wouldn't do that. It's because you take that personally because you thought you knew that character, and someone's telling you something that goes completely against what they stand for. Dave Filoni knows these people like the back of his hand. He knows what Ahsoka would say in any situation, what she would do. He knows what Kanan would say or do. So in this in Rise of Skywalker, Dave is probably thinking, okay, why would they reach out to Rey? What are they doing right now?
Yeah.
That's the story.
Yeah, and I think to your point, he, even if a character, in like my opinion, like Luke and I've well, I won't even touch the Last Jedi, but it's he can take a character even if it's written in a way that Luke is in the Last Jedi, and I think Dave has the ability to expound on that. And while we may not, fully come across to liking how he was
Liking the
portrayed in that
sequels.
movie, Dave has a way of being able to, I think, make that better. And I will also say the really special thing about Star Wars, and not to completely go a different direction, but kind of with the Kiane Mundi stuff right now and the Acolyte, I think what's really special about Star Wars is being able to take the small lines that are said, like what he says in the Phantom Menace about the Sith being extinct. That one small line has implications for an entire TV series, just like these random voices that J.J. Abrams decided to throw in the end of a trilogy of movies could have, who knows the stories that are involved and where those Jedi are in that point of their lives. You know what I mean? So that's kind of what's special about Star Wars, is even the smallest of lines and the things that you think don't matter, you could take it and create a whole theory. And I'm going down a rabbit hole with that, but I
So
think you get what I'm trying to say.
I just thought of a question for Ahsoka season 2 for both of you. Do you think we're getting? Is it going to be more focused on Ahsoka and Sabine, or are we going to get Hera and everyone still, like Jason even? Like, is it going to be focused on everyone still, or is it going to be more focused on Ahsoka and Sabine?
I think the question is how many things are coming before Ahsoka season 2?
That's a good point, Travis. I was actually going to bring this up.
Because I put up the theory a while ago. I think it would be hilarious. I don't know much about Skeleton Crew.
Yes.
But am I wrong in that it's about those characters crossing paths eventually with Ahsoka and with that storyline?
I don't think that's confirmed, but I'm glad you brought that up. That was a good segue, Journeyman, because I forgot I was actually going to bring this up. The Skeleton Crew is rumored to take place in this galaxy, Peridia, where Peridia is at.
That's what I heard.
And so I don't know if I mean, we could assume. I mean, Rosario Dawson showed up as Ahsoka in the Book of Boba Fett. I mean, who's to say that she's not going to show up in the Skeleton Crew? But it could be interesting to see. I don't think they're going to reveal Abeloth of the Skeleton Crew, but I certainly think that we could see some hints of what's going on there, and maybe we can see some of her Abeloth's powers that we've kind of talked about. Maybe we could get little glimpses of what's going on in that show. So you have, to answer your question, we have Skeleton Crew. Tony said Dave is working on Ahsoka before he does the writing for his movie. I think the only thing in the Mandalorian universe that we know is coming out before Ahsoka season 2 and his movie in the Mandalorian. Well, let me think.
I think it's just Skeleton Crew, right? Because it's just Skeleton Crew, then Ahsoka, and then the movies.
There was supposed to be the Rangers of the New Republic, but I'm pretty sure
that's canceled. Like they're not doing that.
So, but to your point, Journeyman, I think it's depending, like how much of it's about Ahsoka and how much of it's about other things, is how much of that story is told in a different show. Not necessarily Ahsoka's story, but
in Skeleton Crew. Yeah.
Yeah, because I remember I brought up, I think it was one of the first streams I jumped into. I thought it would be, I brought up how I think it'd be funny because we saw Shin Hati run away. How funny it would be if she encounters the Skeleton Crew, the kids, and she's like, "That's my way off the planet, Jude Law's ship," and then she tries stealing it, but like there's a larger threat, and she has to kind of reluctantly help them out, and then she ends up kind of joining the crew. I think that would be I thought that would be a neat idea, but especially if there's supposed to be in the same galaxy, I think there's going to be some connective tissue with these shows.
Yeah. Well, and also, I agree. I think that I hope that there's connective tissue. There should be connective tissue for sure. But what you brought up Shin Hati, and I think one thing that's interesting is someone pointed out that the resemblance of that actress and how she's portrayed in the show is very, very similar to a lot of the images that we see of Abeloth. And
she's not as ugly as that thing, I can tell you that. Jeez.
Not yet.
The girl not yet. Hati is beautiful.
Not yet.
That's nasty. But yeah,
not yet.
I see what you mean.
It could be a situation where I mean, wouldn't that just be heartbreaking? Is Shin wanted to get off that planet, like you're saying, she wanted to leave. As soon as she got there, she was like, "Master, I don't really want to be here. Like, can we leave?" And he's like, "No, we must stay. We will bring peace to the galaxy. Like, we're gonna do these great things. We're gonna end the cycle between good and evil and blah 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 blah." What if in him bringing there, she is corrupted and kind of becomes the big bad?
Well, the only reason I ask my question is like you said, depending on what is connected. But the only reason I'm asking is because I'm thinking Ezra is back in our universe, what we know, and would you save all that stuff for the movies and like the Thrawn stuff, or do you? Like at this point, I would just think you would focus on Ahsoka and like Peridia and all that. Agree or disagree at that point?
Yeah,
because I don't think there's a reason to focus on Ezra and Hera and all them since they're back in the new universe or old universe.
I think that I think that I'm wondering if the Thrawn stuff will be explored more heavily in the Mandalorian and Grogu movie.
That's kind of what I'm thinking. Like,
and I think these movies, Tony says right here, I think we're probably going to see a lot of these get delayed. I mean, I posted a short, I think it was last week, where Dave, and I think we talked about it on stream, Journeyman, actually, like Dave is saying that Ahsoka season 2 is his number one priority. Well, that hasn't even started. I mean, they're in the very, very beginning stages of Ahsoka season 2. So to say that that's his priority, and his movie, I think, was supposed to come out in 2027, which I suppose could still happen.
It's going to come out like in 2030 or whatever.
I don't think it'll be that late, but I think it's going to get delayed because I think that they have to set a lot of this. I think they have to set a lot of this stuff up. So to answer your question, I think we'll see the Hera stuff explored more in the movie, the Mandalorian Grogu movie, and I almost wonder if that movie is going to have to come out before we even get Ahsoka season 2. That's just my thought.
I think, a big part of it is I think it's easy to forget because we got so much Star Wars at one time. Like we got Book of Boba Fett, Mandalorian season 3, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Acolyte within less than 2 years. Like those were all like Andor, even Tales of the Jedi, Tales of the Empire. Like we had so many. The Tales of the Empire, Tales of the Sith, I think it was.
Tales of the Empire, yeah.
So much, but now we're gonna have a huge gap. And I think it's sort of like with the MCU, there's been like huge gaps where like it's been a year without an MCU movie. You're like, but I think we're gonna have like a good 3 or 4 years without a Star Wars show, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, you'll have Andor season 2. You have Andor season 2. That comes out next year.
Long time given what we've.
You're right. I definitely don't think we'll see as many shows pop up next year in 2025. I think the only show that's slated to come out is is Andor. Now, I'll say this, and this is something I've been thinking about a little bit lately too. I do wonder if they're the Tales of the Empire kind of came out of nowhere. I mean, I'm on X. I see all the leaks that come out. Tales of the Empire came out of nowhere. They can hide animation a lot better than they can these big sets and actors and the live action stuff. Wouldn't it be so cool? I'm just throwing this out there. Wouldn't it be so cool to see a Clone Wars animated style of Luke's new Jedi Order?
You get a Lego version of it in that terrifying special on Disney Plus.
I would love. Would that just be so cool though to like kind of get some of those stories? So to answer your question, Travis, I think in terms of live action projects, Andor season 2 is coming out 2025, and then I would expect potentially to see Ahsoka probably be next, and that would probably not come out till probably late 2025. 2020, probably more 2026. And then that's when the movies are supposed to come out, is in 2026. So
I think once that first project and that initiative comes out, it'll be in a couple of years. I think Journeyman's question will become much more clear in that time, because then everything will feel so much sooner. You're like, that's coming out next month now. That's coming out next year. Okay, this is all starting to add up.
Well, and I mean, like to bring this full circle, as we're kind of rounding this conversation out now, I mean, to bring it full circle, the whole point of this stream was the fact that they're casting for this role. So they're at least in the stages of casting for Abeloth, which means that, you know, if Dave already kind of has his story written out, I mean, it's a matter of time before they begin filming. So,
but I think they're doing the correct thing of delaying everything, because I think you need to get your ducks in a row and get the story correct. Because I think they're done with Skeleton Crew. They're done editing it, I think, and all that. It's just they're delaying everything so that they can have every kind of piece ready to go. Not necessarily ready to go, but like at least the story correct, to where they don't really have to change a lot. And so
Skeleton Crew comes out late this year, around Christmas time of this year. So
sure, but I think it's delaying them, giving time to write the rest of whatever they need to help the story flesh it out. That way they can start editing and everything, like doing everything that they need to. You can kind of flesh the story out.
Well, and in two separate pieces of news that I saw on Bespin Bulletin today, regarding the movies, Mandalorian and Grogu has started filming.
That's good.
And the Rey movie is the new Jedi Order Rey movie is not going to be filming this year at all. So that could potentially be getting delayed.
You see Tony's last comment?
Let's see. He says, I can see Chimera and Abeloth as a great couple. All teeth.
Interesting.
Well, you see, everybody speculated that Chimera, the stranger as they're calling him now, was going to be some like acolyte of Abeloth. And I'm like, okay, this is where Star Wars fans just start drawing wonky connections.
That early on in the story? Okay. Like we're going to go all the way back there. Okay.
Yeah, I will know. Though, guys.
Yeah, no worries. We're wrapping up. So thank you,
Yeah.
Travis, for being here.
Thanks, Travis.
Hopefully we can have you on soon again. So
Yeah, I really appreciate you guys having me. I told you, I sent you a short message in the Discord, but Journeyman didn't get to see it. It really says a lot about it really stands out, especially today, to have a channel where you embrace the positive and try to avoid the negative as opposed to the other way around. It makes you guys stand out because I think eventually, it's speaking for myself, I'm like ditching when I want to see people talk about Star Wars, but I'll just drop channels once they start all sounding the same and talking about negativity. And this is one where I can feel like I can relax. I'm like, you know what? I don't have to keep unsubscribing. I'm in a place where I feel welcome. So thank you guys for that.
yeah, we appreciate that.
Yeah.
That was why we wanted to start this. So hey, leave your the name of what you want the Jedi to be on the community tab tomorrow in that post. I need your input on that for sure. So
All right.
I
You
know
too.
you have some good news.
All right. Have a
All
good
right.
night, guys.
We'll see you, Travis.
See you, Travis.
Oh, he was going to say, "May the Force be with you."
Oh.
All right. Well, Dreamman, is there anything else that you want to add before we hop off here?
Well, I did have one more question. Do you think it's the correct decision to recast Balin? I guess that was the question I should have asked for both of you. But like, do you think that's a wise choice that they're doing, or do you? I mean, it would kind of be weird for them not to, but
Yeah, I think that it's the right choice. I can't remember the actor's name, but there was an actor that someone threw out on X, I believe.
do you know who it was?
Nah, I can't remember now. Let me see if I find it really quick here.
I can look at Balin.
Let me see. Tony, if you're still in the chat, is there someone? There was I swear I saw it, and maybe Tony, there's an actor out there that's being floated around for a potential recast for Balin. I can't even remember who it was now that I saw this from. I'm wondering if it was Star Wars Meg. I'll try Star Wars Meg, but I actually don't think it was Star Wars Meg. I can't remember, but there is someone out there, Journeyman, who almost looks identical to Ray Stevenson. And so I think it is the right decision to recast. In fact, there was one theory out there, I think it was on Mike's Discord, that was saying that we could potentially see a situation where they kind of move Balin's character along very quickly and maybe have him get possessed and or
Actually die.
maybe die, but like kind of similar to what we're talking about, like Shin Hati, of like they could, if it's even sad to talk about, but if they could find a way to replicate Ray's appearance through CGI or something and kind of move the story along to a point of where they have a character and he gets so corrupted or possessed that his appearance completely changes. You don't even have to really worry about the likeness aspect. Again, it's sad to even say, but
Yeah.
it's a possibility for sure. So we've been going an hour and 30 minutes here. I think we should go ahead and wrap it up. Again, if you're not subscribed, if you wouldn't mind hitting that subscribe button, that would be really awesome. I would really appreciate it. And stay tuned for more Ahsoka season 2 and just speculation in general about what's going on. I'm sure we'll have lots of live streams in the future where we're talking about this stuff. So if someone in the chat wouldn't mind giving me a motion to adjourn, I think we're going to go ahead and adjourn the stream. And we'll
Once again,
touch
thank you,
base.
Travis, for coming on. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. We appreciate Travis. And Hopefully we can have him on in the near future when we need our resident senator lore expert to come back and shed light on some things. It's great to have him. We got an adjourn from Tony, so we'll go ahead and adjourn the stream. We'll see everyone back here on Tuesday to talk about the Acolyte episode 6. Probably a lot of fun things to talk about. But until then, may the force be with you always.